welcome one and all to our event, My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. And as usual, Shanaz and I co host this event, and its focus is really on giving you the tips or from our perspective really, and also sometimes when we do a bit of research, we read a book or whatever, to give you the kinds of tools we think you might need and you might find useful, to live your life in a way that's totally engaged and to enjoy this journey called life, no matter whether it's focused on your career or family or any other thing that is most important to you. So today, I will hand over to Shanaz, who will take us through her topic of choice. And as much as you probably waiting with bated breath, so do I. Shanaz, over to you.
Hi there. So, sort of following on from last week and just some of the themes that we've been kind of dealing with. In terms of, that ability to say no, etc., and all of things which go along with it. I was busy in the week with some work and doing some journaling and kind of busy as you are with yourself and self growth. And then I came to this conclusion that um as I am on trying to change my lifestyle and become more healthy, etc., I realized that I have some of my challenges with sort of running and physical activity, etc., is that I want to escape discomfort and everything. But the interesting thing about this is that we are wired, our brains are kind of wired to maintain what they call homeostasis. So your brain wants you to stay in this comfort zone. It wants to do things that are familiar, that your brain is literally wired for that. And then I started to kind of think deeper about it, like, um, why do I want to escape discomfort all the time? And I was thinking, I had a few scenarios where this kind of happened last week. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I need to like address this in my own behavior. And because obviously if I'm going to um if I'm choosing comfort and I'm choosing to get out of the discomfort, there are certain things that I'm not going to be able to achieve. But it's very difficult when your brain is kind of set up for that. And so what is my issue with discomfort? And then I know all of these pop psychology things about leaning into the discomfort, etc., etc., but I wanted to kind of make it more meaningful for me because it's something that I do struggle with, particularly around physicality. And I told a friend of mine, I told a friend of mine, someone I know, I said to them, I would like to be a brain. I said, and then all the other parts of me can be like a robot, like anatomically corrected. And I mean that's where the world is literally going that way with AI, etc. So I'm like quite on trend in that way with enhancements and things. I just need to keep my brain. And then I was like having this giggle about that. And then thinking about, so what happens when I disconnect from my body? What happens when and then started to think about that and was realizing that, you know what, we all want to escape pain. Most of my clients that come see me, even if it's not some deep psychological pain, but just for example, and I know I've spoken about it, I'm not going to speak about that. So clients often come see me or patients come see me, and it's like some part of their life they're feeling stuck, and usually it's not that they're feeling stuck that is the problem, but it's their discomfort with feeling stuck. And then I was like reading into this because now I've decided I don't like discomfort, and this is something I need to address in my life. Because even when I had an argument with someone, I wasn't actually intending to have the argument with the person, but this friend of mine remains very calm, and apparently that causes me discomfort. Like when I am arguing, I want you to take me seriously, and I don't want to feel like the child when I'm getting animated in this argument, and you are like remaining calm, and like you are shouting at me. So I realized a few things, and I wanted to delve into this more deeply, because I realized that a lot of my patients come to me, and a lot of my clients and a lot of my students come to me when they are wanting to escape the pain or the discomfort, and because it's anxiety provoking, and the pain and the discomfort is anxiety provoking, so all they want to do is leave that space. And I know one or two things in psychology about that space. You can also call it dissociate. So in other words, we leave our body, and I know that we can think about being present, but we dissociate when we repress something, when we want to, when I after I've had a difficult conversation, and I go and I buy me cake, or I go and I have that cup of coffee. Sometimes I don't realize it, but I'm trying to escape the discomfort and the uncomfortable feeling of dealing with a difficult or painful situation. Others of us want to escape sad feelings. We don't want to feel sad. We hold it in, and in that way, all we what we're trying to do then is we're trying to escape, and we try to distract ourselves from the feeling of sadness, which causes, or anxiety, which causes this uneasiness or discomfort in ourselves. Then I've read this amazing article by the psychologist, and I was really having a bit of a giggle with myself. And it's called Embracing Discomfort, the Surprising Path to a Meaningful Life. And there are a couple of things that I had to laugh about it, because it's like it made me really think. So one of the little slogans that she uses is, for example, you hurt where you care. So in other words, if this thing is causing discomfort, you hurt where you care, then you know that it's meaningful to you. And then the other thing that I realized, which she also says, is that a meaningful life is not a pain-free life. I'll say it again. A meaningful life is not a pain-free life. And I have discovered that in my family and in my history, we don't easily deal with pain, whether that is pain of loss, pain of having an uncomfortable conversation, pain of kind of saying no. And so, what the psychologist's name is Diana Hill. So, I'm going to read you. So, she says that let's think of the following activities, and you need to go through this checklist. What of these is it's both, so life can be both meaningful but also painful. And I like struggle with this idea that, oh my word, life is painful and meaningful at the same time. Like I'm not going to be able to escape the pain, which is what I want to and my brain wants to. So she gives examples of like, and you need to make a checklist of what of these will be painful for you, right? So she says, saying no to people, projects, and activities when your plate is full, resolving conflict with a family member, listening with an open mind to someone who has a different political view than yourself, waking up early to move your body even when you're exhausted and it's dark outside, completing a challenging workout, race, or other physical task, visiting a loved one in the hospital, staying at an event when you're feeling socially anxious, turning down a drink, food, or other substance at a social event when you know you've had enough, traveling with your kids, and asking for time off from work to take care of your mental health. And I was like thinking, wow, actually, a lot of these kind of would tick my box in terms of feeling, experiencing pain. And I realized that as a child, I was never taught how to deal with pain in life. Or, I don't think realizing that meaningful experiences come with pain in life. And I think that how we dealt with pain in my family was it usually like lots of shouting, and demands, and avoidance, right? So I learned that, and I realized I have to acknowledge how do I had to think about how do I respond to pain. And I discovered that I respond to pain by wanting to escape it or becoming quite immature and demanding, or kind of throwing like a tantrum, and not communicating effectively. And that, what she says is that, learning to cope, or learning to become comfortable with your discomfort is like an important life skill. And I realized that, I'm my age that I am, and I haven't really, I don't do in certain areas, I don't do well in managing this discomfort. And so she has these 6 strategies which I really like, and she talks about how to skillfully choose pain and meaning. And I recall that, I was listening to a video on Corrie Ten Boom, who was this missionary in the Holocaust, in the concentration camps. And the person was narrating the story, and apparently, she wrote this one book, and in this book, I think it's called Hiding Place. She talks about the fact that, when she and her sister was in the concentration camp, that although it was really awful, etc., and you can imagine that there were so many fleas and it was so filled with diseases that their captors, the Nazi soldiers, would refuse to come into the camp itself, like into their unit, and that actually protected them. They also had lots of opportunities to actually share with other women, the kind of thoughts on God and life, etc. And I just kind of thought about, maybe there's something here about my inability to manage discomfort in different circumstances, and maybe it's time I learn. And so what, Diana Hill talks about is that if we can think of, pain, and our brain kind of has a pain threshold, and she talks about, like, sometimes you find that with addicts they have too much pleasure, right? Because of the drugs, it causes this effect in their brain, that's quite euphoric, and then they actually need to come down. And so she says we need a balance of this. So in other words, when we think of an addict's withdrawal, like they're not having that, in that same way pain actually plays a very balancing role in our life, and it actually creates meaning. And what she says is that, I ask, and I like what she says, that I ask my clients to choose pain in the service of supporting what is most meaningful for them. And this is where she comes up with that little term that says, where I hurt, that's where I care. And so it made me realize that actually, this is important for me. So her 6 strategies then, and she talks about some of this will be familiar, but I felt that it just gives me more meaning. And she talks about the focus on the power of choice, and she says that how can you choosing to experience pain instead of resisting it changes your relationship with it. And the fact that actually I'm choosing to get up at this time of the morning because the reward that I'm getting from it is so meaningful for me, and that what can actually happen is that my brain can start to say yes, brain, that just the fact that because of the reward system of the brain, your brain will slowly start to want to become balanced, that the yes or the no, I don't want to do that, you can switch the flip the on your brain, and it can start to say yes. So when I really focus on how meaningful this is to me, how meaningful my relationship is, how meaningful me getting becoming more physically healthy is to me, I can actually change my brain to let this be an experience that is actually purposeful for me, and that it won't see it as this painful experience. It could become a pleasurable experience. So that is the thing. The other thing she talk about is that turn up, she talks about in that way you want to turn up the meaning dial. How much does it mean? And she says that often we spend so much time, and I realize that I actually spend a lot of time trying to avoid it. I get so caught up in trying to escape the pain, right? That I actually lose track of where I am and what it is that I want. And so become then for me, it's really important then to actually for I need to focus on how much time am I actually spending and wasting on focusing on this pain, when actually if I turn up the meaning dial, like how much this mean to me, if I spend as much time trying to avoid this particular exercises which I don't want to do, and I spend as much time thinking about how meaningful it is, that she talks about it. She says that you will develop greater distress tolerance when you focus. So my body will literally physically be able to cope with it. And I love this because this is what happens. I know when I've spoken to runners, this is what happens to them. And this is what she says pain, which I love. And I never thought about it in this way. Pain and meaning are tethered. And so when I think of tethering, then I always think of how I hook up sometimes when I have no Wi Fi. I hook up my phone to, or I hook up my laptop from my phone's Wi Fi to make, cause I have a hotspot. And if I can think of it that they are always connected, pain and meaning is always connected, then what I can what can happen is that I can actually cope better with the pain, and the distress and the discomfort. And I really like that idea. One of the other things that really kind of came through to me was this idea that she talks about physicalize your discomfort, and what she means is that it's a way in which we get out of our heads. So she says notice a physical or an emotional discomfort, try to turn it inward to your body. And she says how you want to possibly describe it. Describe the comfort or the shape or the color or the movement or the weight. She says, and then, so what I will try to do is, so a friend of mine, we were chatting about something that I find discomforting. And then she said to me, like, have a conversation with it. Okay, so if it's an exercise that I did not want to do, or if it's a situation that I've been avoiding, I can talk to the avoidance and the discomfort, and I can say, you know, You served me well when I was a child, when I didn't want to deal with these things, but now I'm a big girl and I can actually physically and emotionally manage this. And to because there is this idea that what you resist will persist, right? Those lovely slogans. And literally, the more I'm trying to resist doing these exercises that I hate, and like trying to resist not getting into a particular argument, I find myself doing this, but actually then acknowledging the role that this has played in my life, by almost stepping outside of it and out of my head. And I really, really like that idea. And so, what we always know, and I mean, we've spoken about here, is about staying in the present, and that staying in the moment with that discomfort. And we always talk about how to, sort of remain physically present, but emotionally present and connected as well. And then one of the other things is that she says that pain and discomfort are a part of a well lived life. And practice opening yourself up to a more full experience, and then you actually discover greater freedom. And so, this idea that when we're experiencing pain, it can be a transcendent experience for us, it can be transformational. And I've never really thought of pain and suffering in that way. And I know it seems like an obvious because, like, of the behavior. I'm a social worker, I do counseling, I do therapy. But actually, when you think about pain and suffering in that way, that it's part and it's connected to a meaningful and well lived life, and that it's transformational, it goes on to a totally different level. And so, what I want to encourage people, because I think that there's a part of me as a lecturer, as a person who cares about people and is compassionate, and that's why I do the work that I do. But there's a part of me that, and I think that many of us in the counseling field, we want to make people feel better. And and I think that for some of us, we can find the balance. But for in terms of, like, actually sometimes people need to feel the pain, they need to sit with the discomfort. I don't need to ask them, are you feeling better? And I think that in the helping profession, we can do that too much. When actually, for our patients and our clients to experience the discomfort of that painful experience, and for me to experience the pain of, I need to learn how to do this, I need to not know, I need to come out of the denial of, what a lack of exercise or living this particular lifestyle is for me. That actually can be transformational, rather than wanting people to always feel better when they leave us or they're in the session with us. So that's my thoughts. And she says, and just to kind of end with, she says, and choosing to practice compassion in relationships can be painful at times. And I think that that's like that sometimes in relationships things are going to be painful, but that's actually in a way, when you are confronting some of those things, that can be uncomfortable. Speaking up for injustice can also be uncomfortable, but in that way we practice our compassion. And I think that that's, yeah, been an eye opener for me. Thank you.
So there's so much to really comment on. Let me tell you the first thing that really comes to mind, where where my curiosity comes in, and just to set the scenario. I mean, I already commented here on the in the text box, is that as there's a certain personality type within the Enneagram that we did deal with in July or so on, and it's called a visionary enthusiast. Now, the core motivation of a visionary enthusiast is always to avoid the pain of missing out. the shadow of this, and it's a language that's used within Enneagram language, is you're also not wanting to sit in the pain, the constant reframing, to rather focus on what's more exciting, focus on a vision, and so forth, and be energized by that. So, Shanaz, my question literally is, I wonder how practical, or what does it look like practically to sit in the pain?
That means that you are comfortable, you accept where you are at, and you don't try and fix it. You don't try and escape it. That you actually go through the actual thing. You have the difficult conversation. You don't avoid the situation. You don't try and fix it or change something. You sit in it when literally, if I'm feeling stuck at this moment, or you go and do it. I'll give you an example. So these it's strength based exercises that I need to do, the particular movements I can't do. And I have accepted that I can't do it, and I'm going to have to start at the beginning. I've accepted that and acknowledge the effect that this has had on me, my lifestyle, and that I have to start at the beginning and that it's okay. And I am going to do those exercises because the running for me is meaningful and important. And if I want to become a runner that I see myself, I have to do this. So I have worked on focusing on meaning for me, and that's how I'm going to do it. The other thing is that the enneagram in a sense is nature versus nurture, or nature, yeah, versus, that environment. And I am always a belief that to a certain extent you can mitigate that. I don't think that you are completely in, if you one of the peacekeepers, that things may be uncomfortable for you, right? So my sister is a peacemaker, but she has learned that in order for her business to survive, she has to attend to uncomfortable things. And she has been in a space where she has had to do uncomfortable things, so much so, in physically, that she has recently won a CrossFit competition and she couldn't do it before.
Wow. So that
So
aspect.
it's the power of the brain. It's absolutely the power of the brain and the reward system, which she speaks about. Your brain wants homeostasis. So your brain starts to switch when you build up those new neural pathways. And your brain wants it to be comfortable. So the very thing that you are finding uncomfortable can become reasonably uncomfortable. And if you start to find the meaning in it, then it can even become a reward for you,
Mm,
pleasurable.
and and those are the first 2 points that you started with, was the focus on the power of choice, where you flip the switch in terms of, and then coupled with that is turning up the meaning dial.
Yep.
There's oh, okay. So you're interested to arrive at a certain destination, whether you're walking, running, cycling, whatever the case might be. If you develop blisters along the way, you understand that those blisters might be as a result of your activity, but your focus remains on arriving at your destination.
Not only, it's not just about arriving at the destination, it's the meaning that that destination has for you, that it's
Aha.
become rewarding. It's not just achieving a goal, it's about the deep reward that it's now become, that it's literally part of your brain circuitry, in terms of you have a reward for it. You get a psychological reward for it. And your brain, it's how neural plasticity works,
Mm.
the path in our brain for pleasure
Mm-hmm.
and reward. We have a reward system in our brain, and it taps into the reward system, where the very thing that we found uncomfortable is now has become pleasurable because of the reward we get from it, the feeling that we get from it, and the meaning we place on it.
Mm. Hmm. Yo, as usual, so much left to discuss. But thank you, Shanaz. A lot to really chew on,
Yep.
actually.
Yeah.
So it's then a question of becoming comfortable with discomfort when you can ascribe meaning to the journey, meaning to what it is you are doing, and as you so eloquently put it there, it's not just about the destination; it's the deeper meaning, the deeper purpose behind it. I like the word purpose as well. So okay, the piece on nature versus nurture, very important. That even though it on the surface, superficially, unconsciously, nurtures influenced your sort of default approach, default thinking, or nature. Sorry, I said it the other way around. Nature, it's like you've come up in that way. The key would be is that consciously you can make the changes, and the opportunity that you have in terms of retraining the brain by highlighting the reward, but not just at the end, but during the experience.
Yes, absolutely correct. I love that. That's why I like to study the brain.
Yes, fascinating, really fascinating. Thank you, Shanaz. And to those listening, well, you can go listen to the playback, or you can actually listen to the edited version on the YouTube channel, and you'll find it under the Mufasa Coaching Practice. So until next week, become conscious of what you are doing to avoid pain and turn towards it, embrace it, turn up the meaning dial, flip the switch in your brain, focus on the reward of why it is you are either doing what you're doing or needing to do or wanting to do that which will ultimately fulfill you. So, Shanaz, until next week then.
Thank you. Thanks, Julia. Bye.
Bye.